The war on women is abortion.
That's right. Yes, yes, yes.
Not only on the grown woman, but I don't know for sure, but probably at least 50% of the babies that are aborted are girls,
That's
young
right.
women.
That's right.
And if you ask that baby, if you said, would you rather be born, live your life, fulfill your dreams, or would you rather be torn apart by some surgeon's instrument? I'm sure they would choose life.
Come on. That's right.
And I was reading in Exodus 14:15, and this was in the New Living. So it's probably a translation you're maybe not as familiar with. It struck me as a new, fresh word that I hadn't heard before. Because how many times, it's so appropriate, I believe, right now, how many times have you talked to people and they say, have you seen the Grammys, the paganism? You just seen the mass homosexual wedding? Did you see what was going on with the pornographic? Did you see what happened in the State of the Union? Are you seeing our country is burning down? How many people do you talk to that talk that way all the time? Well, here's what God said. Israelites are facing the Red Sea. And here's what God said. Then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving. And that's what you need to tell the people when they whine and cry about what's going on. What I want to say is if your house is burning down, like our nation is burning right now, you wouldn't just stand there and pray about it. You wouldn't just stand there and say, well, there goes the living room. There's all the family photos. That's no good. You know? Oh, my. Can you believe the kid's bedroom just burned to the ground? I mean, that's what we've got to get moving. We need to get together. We need to unify. And we need to put out this fire. That's what we need to do. And so I just believe that the only way that we can keep our freedoms is if we use them right now for everything they're worth. So I gave a speech in Portland, Oregon a couple of weeks ago. Somebody there had a sign that said, pretend I'm a tree and save me. It was very appropriate for that corner of this country. And I gave a speech, and I said just what came to my heart. I don't always write them out. I don't always think about it, but this is what was in my heart. I said, we have been talking about ending abortion for 41 years. This is the year we do whatever it takes to bring the killing to an end. And that is what I came back and convicted by my own words. I said, all right, here we are. We're at a stalemate. What can we do? I think the answer is do everything. Let God handle the rest. So we started a little postcard campaign. It looks better than this, but here's the idea. If you go to f2a.org, that's the website, Faith to Action, the shortcut F like faith, the number 2, A like action. We will send a postcard for you for free to Speaker Bill Batchelder, who needs to be reminded of his pro-life roots. And here's what it says. What's the cost of delaying the heartbeat bill vote? The answer is 26,000 human hearts. And in the postcard it says, the time for political games and broken promises is over. Until you bring the heartbeat bill to a vote, you can forget about getting mine. These bills we now have, these postcards we have now, 3,000 that are being sent. Because what you can do is click a button for the same amount of effort. You click a button, you send it to all the Republican leadership in the House, the Republican leadership in the Senate. If you click another button and pay for just a small donation to cover the cost of the printing and the postage, we'll send it to every Republican in the House, every Republican in the Senate, and Governor John Kasich, who could use a little reminder of his pro-life roots. So we're sending thousands, and I'm hoping you'll join me to keep these cards coming. And so Emily calls me up and she says, I want you to find out, ask God. And I was kind of a little offended with God because I had asked him some things earlier in the week and wasn't getting any answers. So she says, I want you to ask God what season you're in. Go read Ecclesiastes. So, to kind of, comply with Emily, I said, all right, I'll do that. I didn't really expect to see an answer, but I went into Ecclesiastes 3. And I'm reading the verse, and it says, the bird song, to everything there is a season, turn, right? It says, there's a time of war and a time of peace. And I said a little prayer, and I just said, is this a time for peace or a time for war? Let's lay out the case. The NSA is listening to all of our conversations. They're keeping track of our emails. They are now keeping track of where we go by the apps on our phones. This is no longer a paranoia tinfoil hat issue. This is reality. It's the reality in which we live. We've got healthcare with the IRS that's closing down tea parties and Christian conservative groups, deciding who lives or dies. We've got a Senate who for the 4th year has said no to protecting babies with beating hearts. The 41st year of talk about ending abortion without it actually being done. And I'm looking to say, is it marriage on the, are you kidding me? What happened on the Grammys? Are you serious? What's going on in state after state is they're redefining and they're undermining the institution of marriage. They're attacking our freedoms. As I've talked to these people, as I sit across the desk from them and they're crying about their business being closed, is this a time for peace or is this a time for war? And you know, it seems sometimes that we want to be really Christian and we really want to love and we want to, you know, I said, is it me? We do a conference call with Julie Busby. She says, well, I just spoke to the men at the Lebanon Correctional Institute and that told them it's a time for war. There is a time and there is a season for us to rise up and fight back and do what it takes to get our freedoms, to do what it takes to see babies protected, to see marriage protected and our freedoms remain. So I look back in biblical history. Who are the people that God honored? The people that God honors are the people that honor God.
Come on.
When David went before Goliath, he didn't say, hey, I'm pretty good with this sling, you know? Let me tell you about the bear, let me tell you about the lion. No, he said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that dare defy the armies of the living God? And God honored this shepherd boy. And this is what's going to happen. If we honor God, God's going to honor us. So often we treat God. I've sat in meetings with members of Congress just in this last several months. And they said, well, again, we just want to talk about children and marriage being good for families and for society. And they're leaving God out. And they're missing the point. If they think they can win without God, we are mistaken. We are mistaken. And so what I want to say is that if we treat God like if we treated our friends like we treated God, we wouldn't have any friends. Julie was this woman who was running for Senate against Bill Beagle. She says instead of a beagle, let's get a pit bull. This woman will go and she'll take it on. She'll make it happen. She's going to rock the Senate when she runs. And what she says is, what if I told you, what is your name? Teresa. Teresa, I really like you. I think you're really nice. I think you have great hair and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna be at this tea party meeting. There's a lot of people that I know, and I hope you understand that there's some people that really just don't like you. They think you're a little on the edge. Okay, so I hope it's okay with you, Teresa, if when I see you that I don't acknowledge you, and I want to act like I don't know you, because again, I don't want to offend some of the people over here. They don't like you at all. Okay? And by the way, I like some of the stuff you say, and I'm actually going to quote it. But what I want to do is not quote, not attribute it to you. Again, no offense, but they don't like it. So is that okay with you? No. Yeah, I'm actually gonna. She says no, and I'm gonna. And there's a book that you wrote, and I'm actually gonna plagiarize it. And again, not attribute to you, and not acknowledge you. And how long do you want to be my friend? Not very long. Not very long at all. If we treated God if we treated our friends like we treat God, we would not have any friends. And I just heard this last week, Emily and Paul invited me to come down to Oasis, and I went to Tim Sheets' church, heard Dutch Sheets. Anybody go to that? Anybody here go to that? Did you see the flag? Yes. Did anybody here know about that? Yes. I did not know about that. I'm ordering them, and next speech I have, I'm going to hold it up. This is a flag, our first flag. Yes. I like to, I met these friends of mine that said, I'm daughters of the American Revolution. Isn't that wonderful? I'm like, yeah, that's great. So I did a family tree, and I'm like, so am I. I'm related to Ben Franklin and Betsy Ross, but our first flag was not the Stars and Stripes. The first flag that was waving as a banner above our battlefields and over our ships was a flag. It was a white flag, but it was not a flag of surrender. It was a flag that had a evergreen tree on. I'll tell you about the evergreen tree, but here's what it said on the banner that hung above America. And it was from the writings of John Locke. And the writings of John Locke said, if you are the underdog, they were without really shoes. They didn't have the proper clothing, let alone weapons. To take on the most powerful country on earth, it was laughable. There was no stinking way they had a chance. So John Locke says, when you're in that situation and you're up against an army of Goliaths and you can't in any way win, appeal to heaven. Come on. And so it said on the white banner, an appeal to heaven. And it had the evergreen tree, and the evergreen tree was a symbol of covenant. It's the covenant that the founders had with some of the Indian tribes. They actually had a covenant and said, we're going to bury our weapons under the, of course I'm very pro-Second Amendment, to make that clear for the video. But they buried their weapons in this covenant, which is where the phrase bury the hatchet came from. So they had a covenant with each other, they had a covenant with God, and the evergreen tree, which is also apparently the kind of tree that Abraham planted. called something else, but we looked it up and it turns out it's an evergreen tree. It's a covenant with God, an appeal to God. And that is the way we're going to win in America. I was so great, Lonnie. I'm so glad to hear you quote 2 Chronicles 7:14. And everybody knows it by heart. You kind of tune it out and they say, how are we going to win back America? It's in that verse.
Yes.
If we win the church, we win the country. Because it's if my people do these things, including turning from our wicked ways, then God says he's going to hear, he's going to forgive, and he's going to heal our land. That's what's at stake. That's where we are. And I believe that if we rise up and we do what we're called to do, then we're going to see God do everything he's promised to do.